Never judge a wine on your first sip. On my behalf and on behalf of Spier, welcome. This is our tasting room. It looks very quiet at the moment, but we do about 240 people here a day in season. So it does get extremely busy. And then we've got different options of tastings. You'll see on the sheet in front of you, on the left-hand side, we've got the signature tasting, which is our entry-level tasting. And then after that, we've got our chocolate and wine, right, which we're, of course, doing today. Then we've got our winemaker selection. There you get to taste our top-tier wines. And then recently introduced, we've got our organic wine tasting, because we produce a very, very interesting range of organic wines, which is something that's picking up in popularity through and through. In fact, once we've tasted these three, I'd like to introduce you to one or two organic wines. It's really, really good. So the idea behind chocolate and wine pairing is that people have the mindset that whenever you're serving a sweet dish, you need to serve a sweet wine to go with it. In fact, it's easier to pair a dry wine with sweet food than what it is to pair a sweet wine with sweet food. Because sometimes the sweetness of the wine and the sweetness of the food clash, right? And the wine tends to become a little flabby if it doesn't have a big enough acidity. But serving a dry wine in general, they've got high acidities. So hence that's able to hold up to the sugar in the chocolates. And what we want to do here is we want to give the limelight to both the chocolate and the wine. Right. So you want to give the chocolate the stage to enjoy for what it is. And then maybe a little bit more important, you want to give the wine a chance to show off its true colors. But then we've got to see if they both work. And often when I present food and wine pairings, people will have a mouthful of food, they'll swallow the food, and then they'll take a sip of the wine and then say, oh, perfect pairing. But you're not going to know if it's going to work if you don't have both food and wine in your mouth at the same time. Right? And as disgusting as what it might sound, it's the only way you're going to know if food and wine work. And how do you know? You'll know it's a perfect marriage. The food doesn't overpower the wine, and the wine doesn't overpower the food. Right? The two need to neutralize each other, and that's what we need to look at today. Right. So the wines that we are tasting comes from, you'll see in front of you, we've got so many different ranges. We've got the Creative Block, we've got the 21 Gables, we've got the Seawood range. So we've got many different ranges of wine, and stylistically, they're all very different. So you're almost ticking everybody's box, if that makes any sense. So we've got wines for the novice drinker, we've got for the everyday wannabe non-novice drinker, and then you've got the wines that's for your wine connoisseurs, right? The people that believe they understand wine more than most people. And trust me, there's many of them out there that have that intention, but they don't quite. Comes from our super premium wine. It's the Creative Block range. And the Creative Block range is probably our most award-winning range. And you'll see the bottles, it's got different numbers on them. So that's a 3, that's the 5, that's the 2. And all that says to you is the amount of grapes that we use to make that specific wine. So in other words, it's a blend. Right. And people have the mindset that a blended wine is of less quality than 100% variety. Right. It's almost probably the complete opposite. And some of the most expensive, in fact, out of the 10 top most expensive wines in the world, I won't be surprised if 5 or 6 of them are blends. Right. So to compile a blend is hard work. It's not a matter of just getting grapes and juices together and throwing them together. Right? The percentages matter, the tannins, the fruits, the acidity, the alcohols, all those play a very big role. And generally, blends are easier to drink than 100% variety. I'll give you an example. If I give you an espresso coffee with no sugar, no cream, if you're not used to it, you're going to have difficulty drinking it, right? So, precisely. So what I do, I add a dash of sugar. You say to me, Georgio, yeah, we're getting there, but it's not quite what I enjoy. A dollop of cream, and you've got your complete espresso. The same with the wine. You might take a Cabernet Sauvignon, way too aggressive, big tannins. I need to soften it out. What do? You add a bit of Merlot. All right, I'm not quite there. I want to give it a bit of length. Right, let's add a little bit of Cabernet Franc. So you're almost modifying this blend to satisfy, hopefully, a lot of palates. Does that make sense? Perfect. Okay, so would you like me to go through the basics of wine tasting, or do you understand wine tasting and why do they swirl and why do they... Should you? Right. So when you taste wine, be it at a wine tasting, in a restaurant, whatever the case is, you really want to cover 3 tests. The first is visual, looking at the color. And I'll tell you just now about color. Secondly is nosing the wine, which is pretty much smelling the wine, right? And finally is, of course, tasting it. In actual fact, the last step is really not really necessary, because if there's anything wrong with the wine, you'll identify it on the color or the smell, right? So when you look at the color, you're all welcome to pick up your first glass. The color, what we're looking for first and foremost is clarity. Is the wine clear? So in other words, if I were to put a drop of milk in this wine, for argument's sake, it would be milky, it would be murky, right? And the moment the wine is not clear, little red flags must start popping up that there's a very good chance this wine is oxidized. In other words, air got into the bottle without you realizing it. So you probably got a very, very good balsamic vinegar in your glass that's worth probably 1/3 of the price of what it should be. So clarity is important. With regards to a white wine, there are 3 factors that make a white wine darker, more golden color. First is sugar, right? So the sweeter your white wine, the darker it is. Secondly is age. The older your white wine is, the darker it becomes. And finally, oak. The longer your wine has spent time in oak, the darker it is. So of course, the less of those 3 is applicable too, right? And then nosing the wine. Now I find it over here, I find it in restaurants. I don't know, for some other reason, people, when they swirl the glass, I don't know if it's cool or it just feels well, but everybody, the moment they walk into a tasting room, they just start swirling. And they'll have a full-on conversation, but they're still swirling. And then by the time they want to smell the wine, they smell absolutely nothing. Right? Because all those aromas have just evaporated. So the reason why we swirl is to allow the oxygen to mix with the wine, which enhances the bouquet. But if you swirl it too much and for too long, it goes. So only swirl when you're about to smell. Right. So give it a good swirl, and then people do this when they smell. Again, I don't know why. Folks, sorry, with all due respect, right? You've got to literally put your nose into the glass. Right? If you've got a nose like mine, you might have problems. But you keep your nose into the glass and take it away. Another mistake people do. They do this. They keep it there. What happens is, on the inside of your nostril, you've got little hairs, little receptors. And the moment they pick up something interesting, they get all excited and they send all this information up to the brain. Eventually, they get tired of that smell. 3 or 4 seconds, I've done it, been there. Give me something new. So what do? They close down. And then you don't smell anything anymore. So what you do is you swirl, you smell, 2 seconds, take it away. You want to smell it again? No problem. Bring it back. Finally, the wine's in your glass, so you need to taste it. Different parts of your tongue picks up different tastes. Sweetness generally gets picked up on the tip. Sourness is on the sides, bitterness is at the back. And then you get a taste of umami, which is almost salty, and that gets picked up on the mid palate, right in the middle. So the only way that one is able to pick up all those different tastes is you've got to literally chew on the wine as though you got food in your mouth. It looks disgusting, but it's very effective. And if you want to enhance the taste even more, like we swirl for oxygen, you want to try and take in a bit of oxygen, right? While the wine is in your mouth. So you almost, exactly that, but very softly, because you can choke very, very easily. Right. And what I've just said, probably takes 7 seconds once you do it in the tasting restaurant. So it's very, very quick. Good, shall we get started? Yeah. All right, so let's taste the wine first and foremost. So it hasn't got a gold color. It's got that slight green tinge to it, yeah? Almost a strawish color. All right, let's give it a good swirl. And we nose it. Now try and forget about the smell of grapes. Let's face it. That's what it's made of. You're always going to smell grapes. Go past that. Let your imagination run. And what I genuinely find helps very well is try and find bouquets from 3 different compartments. Flowers, fruit, and spice. Try and pluck something, if there is, out of those three little cupboards. Right. So, on the nose, what are we getting?
Michael guava.
Guava, ripe guava or green guavas? Ripe, very ripe. Ripe guavas. How about pineapple?
Subtle.
Very subtle. How about stone fruit? Apricots, peaches. That's quite dominant, isn't it? And then there's quite a bit of gooseberries.
Not familiar with that.
Not familiar. And then lemon curd. You know that sweet lemon curd that you put on warm toast? It's got that lemon curd nose to it. Right, now it's time to taste. Cheers, everybody. On your first sip. Cheers. So I'll slurp a bit, and I hope I don't offend anybody. Never judge a wine on your first sip. It's like, what example can I give you? It's probably like having orange juice after you brush your teeth. Right? The pH on your palate, it's either very alkaline or very acidic. So you're sending that first sip down, and you're saying to your palate, listen, this is what's going to come down your way. First time around, I don't need any information, but when I send it the second time around, I need some info. Right, so you're preparing your palate. Let's take a second sip. Right. Shall we ask basic questions? Is the wine dry, yes or no?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Anything less than 4 grams per liter of sugar, anywhere in the world, it's considered dry. This is sitting at 2.9 grams. So it's certainly dry. Do you get drier? Absolutely you do. Right. Is the wine light-bodied, medium-bodied, or full-bodied? Medium. What would you say, sir?
Light to medium.
Yeah, I would go with you there. I'm with you on medium, but if it needs to lean one way, it will more probably lean towards the lighter side. Yeah. The acidity, that freshness, is quite prominent. Now, acidity is, you need acidity in the wine, otherwise the wine is flabby. And acidity gives the wine longevity. Right, so the more natural acidity the wine has, the more aging potential. I'm sorry I'm boring you. I'm joking. I'm joking. I couldn't resist that. So acidity is very, very important. Yeah. Now, the chocolate. All right, so your first chocolate, you'll see on the left-hand side, it's a passion fruit and lemon. All three of these chocolates are very subtle with regards to taste. What I'd like you to do is take half a bite of the first one, on the left, the white one, and enjoy the chocolate for what it is, right? A couple of times, put the wine in your mouth and give them a time to blend. Think about it. Do they neutralize each other? Do they complement each other? Does the one overpower the other? And the answer, hopefully, should be they do not overpower each other, and they almost neutralize each other's flavors. The chocolate softens the acidity in the wine. 100%. It brings out that spearmintness. And have you noticed that the acidity on our wine is not as in your face as what it was, but the acidity in the wine is also making the sugar, the sweetness of the chocolate gentle.
So prominent.
It's right. It just slots in, right. And this pairing, as simple as what it might look, took weeks and weeks and weeks to nail, because it's not as easy. Now you're playing with one element, right? Can you imagine when you're pairing food and wine? All of us, people think white wine, white meat, red wine. People don't do that anymore. It's too boring. Yeah, exactly. The people become so much more adventurous.